Hello, everyone. Welcome. You're in the right place if you are here for the Vote Save America training number 3, 2024 Organize or Else final training of our training series. Really sad, but Monday's the night, tonight's the night, the finale. Don't worry if this is your first training. You can always rewatch the first two right here on the PSA YouTube. This is going to be my favorite one for sure. We're getting y'all ready to take action by canvassing and phone banking. Go ahead and say hi in the chat. I see a lot of y'all doing it already, but tell us where you're from. Tell us what organizer else team you're on. Let's see if we got more Team East or Team West going. But I'm going to go ahead and get started because we got a lot to cover. Amazing. So as always, we have some community norms tonight. We are going to continue to support each other as we do this final training. I know a lot of y'all have questions, so please continue to drop them in the chat, either on YouTube or on Instagram. And as a reminder, you can always rewatch these at a later date on YouTube. Obviously, we're going to be having fun with or without a little team rivalry at play. We're going to have fun or else. That's the move for sure. All right, so Organize or Else. We've started it. We've kicked it off. And through the actions all of y'all have already started taking over the two teams, Team East, Team West, we have made over 230,000 voter contact attempts, which is so cool. Of course, that encompasses not just canvassing and phone banking, but texting, relational organizing, all of that good stuff. It's amazing, and we're only getting started. So to get y'all even more confident and ready to continue in your volunteer journeys, we hosted the first training focused on integrating top-line messaging into everything we do, especially when we engage people in our lives through relational organizing. It's going to be one of the top priority tactics that we're kind of weaving into everything that we're doing this year. John Favreau actually mentioned a lot of this effectiveness of relational in the first episode of The Wilderness. So check it out if you haven't yet, give it a listen. Last week during our second training, we talked about how to have really effective conversations throughout all of our organizing through the use of a hard ask and personal storytelling. This is how we're going to effectively build power and finish our political conversations. And on top of being able to, rewatch all of our trainings, we also still will have the community resources that we shared at training number 1 and training number 2 at votesaveamerica.com. And it will also, of course, in our VSA Slack, which you'll hear about more in just a second. But with those two trainings, I believe that y'all have the foundation that most volunteers might miss if they only go directly to a random phone bank or canvas. We're also, of course, well equipped with each other, with our VSA community, again, especially as we continue to learn and train and organize in Slack. So now we get to talk details about how to really connect and engage through specific volunteer actions through our specific direct voter contact, which means canvassing and phone banking. Of course, yes, we are still going to be letter writing, texting, other tactics like that, but canvassing and phone banking are top 2 priority tactics, our top 2 effective tactics, and we're really excited to get going because the conversations you have while doing both of these are incredibly effective, even when you're going to be connecting with a stranger across the country or at their doorstep, But yeah, so yes, this is a training to talk to voters, but we're not actually talking to voters tonight, which is totally okay. But that's the whole point. You're going to be able to leave this training feeling more confident in stepping out and actually having those action-oriented conversations. We're covering what to expect during a shift, top tips from a couple experts at a panel. Plus, we have 2 amazing state representatives here to discuss that we'll be supporting this year on how volunteer peer-to-peer conversations make all the difference in races like theirs. And for those of you who dropped some questions in Slack last week, we got them. We're going to address them kind of sprinkled throughout. But I know there's a lot to cover. And given the time, it's almost impossible to cover everything, right? So please, thank you for your patience in advance if we don't get to every question tonight. But again, that's why the training continues and the organizing continues at the VSA Slack. We love it. All right, so let's get into it. As we discussed in past trainings, we're going to keep in mind while I break down both canvassing and phone banking that there is going to be a variety of types of conversations you'll be having through each action. So, you might be recruiting for volunteers, you might be IDing supporters for a certain candidate, you might be having GOTV conversations, which means get out the vote conversations. So that means, making a explicit vote plan with a voter, figuring out how they're going to be doing their completing their ballot. But yeah, so the types of conversations also means that the explicit goal of these actions are also going to vary. But always remember, our top goal, no matter what, is going to be to effectively engage people, bring them into civic engagement, and build power. All right, so let's get started with canvassing. Aside from having, face-to-face, in-person conversations with people you already know, again, relational, we talked about that in training number 1, canvassing, knocking doors through a campaign and organization is still the most effective tactic, simply because you're having that conversation in person, face to face. It's a completely different vibe. Of course, when it comes to canvassing, the commitment, whether it be with your time or your energy, may seem higher because you're having to move your body around town. But with some preparation and planning, you'll start to feel the rush of talking to voters in person. It's one of my favorite things to do. But when canvassing for VSA's Organizer Else program, it might be only applicable to some of y'all, as we have opportunities only in our target states. Again, there are over 20 target states. That's still a lot. Although I know a lot of y'all have other local canvassing opportunities that might not be for one of our target races. That's still awesome. Stay active in your communities. Go for it. And even if you're unable to take action in person wherever you are, it's still incredibly important to kind of know how it all works. And you'll be able to notice a lot of really good parallels between both canvassing and phone banking. And as with any volunteer tactic, I think the most important thing to always keep in mind, especially when canvassing, is remembering the scale of it all. You might have only had 5 conversations, but you're only one of many volunteers. Not only that, but any knock on a door, even if no one's home, even if it's the wrong person, even if they've moved, is still incredibly helpful detail to every single campaign. So don't feel bad if you talk to one person. That one person matters. All those doors that weren't answered also matters. So let's take a look at a shift timeline that you'll generally be, following when you're canvassing. First, you're going to be signing up through the Partners Mobilize event page, a link that we'll share with you. And then after signing up with your name, email, phone number, and zip, you're going to receive confirmation details from that partner. So details will cover, where the canvas is going to be, details on the campaign itself. So that will also include like maybe some talking points, maybe the prior script, maybe the type of conversations you'll be having, that sort of thing. You'll then attend the shift and you'll go through the partners training. So yes, we're at a training now, but every canvas shift, every volunteer shift that we're going to be sending to you, there's going to be some form of training beforehand. It can range from 5 minutes to 30 minutes, but you'll go through that partners training and then you'll go knock doors and you're going to have effective conversations. But that doesn't mean you're done. You'll join back up with your crew, with your fellow volunteers, and debrief in person. And we'll also do some check-ins via Slack as well. And of course, you're going to sign up again and again, because we can't just volunteer once. We got to keep going. We have a while to go. And of course, like I mentioned, isn't this a training? Of course it is. But thankfully, we'll continue to have more trainings at the actual events on the specifics of that shift. So what does that include? So who's going to be there? The partner organizer who's going to be leading the training and the shift. That could be, a staff member, or it could be a fellow volunteer leader. Of course, your fellow volunteers. And if you're lucky, you're going to have some VSA folks around to say hi to. So you may have a VSA canvas captain in your area that will, take some pics, kind of be the hype man for our VSA contingent at the shift. And of course, rock any VSA merch if you have any. How is also an important detail that you'll get clarified once you sign up for the shift. So when it comes to canvassing, you can either have paper walk lists. So this will be something that the organizer will provide, printed out lists of the addresses and the names of the folks. But most of the shifts that we're going to be sending you all to, we're going to try and make sure that they are utilizing a smartphone app like Minivan, just due to it's more efficient in the end. But you'll be able to get trained up and walked through how that app works in the moment for that specific training. When it comes to logistics, you'll also be provided with lit or literature. So that's just like physical campaign materials that you'll either hand to the voter or leave at their door, depending on what that campaign and shift is doing that time. You'll also want to make sure to charge your phone, even if you're not using a smartphone app for your organizing. You're still wanting to make sure that you have your maps going, and you're wanting to make sure that you will be able to be in contact with that organizer. Most of the time, you're going to be exchanging phone numbers with the folks that you're meeting up with, just so that you can definitely prioritize your comfort and safety when walking around and knocking on doors. And then when it comes to the conversations with folks, it's going to be kind of described as cut turf or a list of doors. As a reminder, these folks are not terrifying strangers. They are just regular people. They are your neighbors that you want to have free-flowing conversations with. And you will be provided with the script. More on that in a minute, but you're going to want to make sure to practice it. You will do so at the training for that specific shift, and you'll figure out how to make it your own. We'll go through that in just a minute. I know that was a quick overview, but I'm very excited to kind of bring up our first guest of the evening. I'm excited to introduce Michigan State House Representative Jaime Churches to join us and chat about her race and her experience in direct voter contact within her campaign. So she is a representative for Michigan State Legislative, House District 27. Shout out to Team East as well. We got a target race here for y'all. But yeah, she's representing Downriver, Michigan, educator for over 10 years. She had an iconic win, part of the first Democratic trifecta in Michigan in 4 decades. Please welcome to the stage, Representative Churches. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me tonight. It's really exciting to talk to folks who are looking to get involved.
Yes, we're excited to have you. And yeah, it's really awesome to see we have over 600 folks here ready to get involved. And we're excited to hear from you and get to know you a little bit. But yeah, that's kind of my first question. Obviously, people are tuning in from all over. Some may not be familiar with your specific race or with kind of just the state of how Michigan is rocking and rolling these days. So if you mind, could you just share a little bit more about yourself and your race?
Yeah, so I'm Jaime. I was an elementary school teacher for 10 years, and Downriver, Michigan is just south of Detroit. And my district is pretty much a 50-50 seat. It was a Trump +4 district last go around. And this time it's going to be a really contentious race this year. So we have we have a mountain to climb ahead of us. And last time we knew that too. So I didn't have money to quit my job. I taught 5th grade full time. I declared pretty early, and I just set my sights on this seat. And I was like, I'm going to try and win it. And how I did that, it was like grassroots. Didn't take corporate money. I called all my friends and family. We just kept extending the network. We knocked a lot of doors. We had a lot of in-district fundraisers, and it was really slow and steady. We had 42,000 votes, and I won my seat by 660 votes, which was like almost the slimmest margin in the state. And we have a 1-seat majority. So it was really tough, but we won that by a field margin. So if I didn't knock doors every day after school, if I didn't show up on Saturday and Sunday, like even today, I was out there. I got a little sun today, like tired right now, but it is slow and steady. You got to get out there. You got to talk to voters. And I think that's how we won last time. And we now have a team, a lot more support behind us. So we're doing that and a little bit extra, which is really exciting.
A little bit extra, very exciting, especially after hearing how, slim a field margin can get, right? Which is really cool, though, at the same time. And again, kind of like how you had mentioned, it shows the power of getting out there in the field and making it happen. But you did just mention, you've been knocking doors. I did hear through the grapevine, that in 2022, you knocked over 14,000. Is that right? Amazing. Like that's actually amazing. I've knocked plenty of doors, but I don't know. I haven't kept track, but of course, having the candidate knock doors can like facilitate a different kind of conversation at their doorstep, and that can make all the difference. But can you kind of expand a little bit more on why you would say taking action through canvassing is so important, and then especially this year, especially 2024?
Yeah. So well, first off, like even when I was a 5th grade teacher, it made an impact on my classroom community when my students would see me sit on the carpet with them, when they would see me play basketball with them on the playground, or if I would model how to do something with them. So when you are in someone's neighborhood and you are meeting them where they're at, it means something a little bit different because you're coming to where they're from and you're seeing their perspective. And then you're able to kind of if you can, like today on doors, I talked to two people. One person wasn't on my list, and I was like walking by, and there was like a bulldozer truck or something. They weren't on my list, so I was like, oh, I'm gonna just do it. I'm gonna talk to them. And this guy was like, I'm not into politics, and I was like, well, I mean, that's a political statement right there, but
Mhm.
and I got to talk to him, and he asked me like what I did, why I wanted to do this, and then I got to share a piece of myself. So if you're willing to be authentic and share like a little vulnerability of like I care about this because I got that guy's vote. He wished me good luck, and he was like, "You're doing great." And I was like, "Wow." He was not into talking to me a second ago, but it also helped because his neighbor was super nice, and she was a strong Dem, and she was on my list. So
Oh,
that,
nice.
but just taking a risk and being yourself and
Mm,
connecting with people, not just to knock their door, but to have a human connection, because
yeah,
that's what politics is really about.
absolutely. It is that human connection. All politics for sure, but especially when we're having these like person to person conversations about politics,
Mhm.
like we get often caught up in like the logistics of it all on how to have a conversation. Of course, we got to figure those out, but you're right. As long as you're kind of focused on like, this is a person, this is my neighbor, and we're talking about things that matter to us, you'll be home free. It'll be great.
Mhm.
But you did just share a really cool connection you had. Was there any other recent ones this year that you've, really stuck out with you, either a cool one or maybe a more, like difficult one that you were having at the doors?
Yeah, I mean, I've done everything. Like, I've seen people's gardens, I've gone in their garages, I've gone on people's boats, or like tons of stuff. Like, we live by water over here.
Cool.
We did have a really horrible experience recently, and like that does happen, but it is a reminder. So, I had a fellow from a local university and member of the LGBTQ plus community, and in my community where I grew up, an older person on the door used the F slur against them and ripped up my literature and threw it at them. And it really pains me because I'm not on that door. We send them out in pairs and buddies, but to know that this is prevalent and it does happen, and to really young people like that don't deserve, like no one deserves that, but to know like we are working against anger, we are working against hate, and we can show up a certain way, but we are also going to encounter um, discrimination and injustice. And we have to create a community within our office to support each other and to realize, like, hey, like we get to have pride events in our community because we did this work 2 years ago, and we
Yeah,
got to expand Elliott Larson like because of this work. So without that one seat, we wouldn't be able to make equal rights expanded in Michigan. So even though we're facing that does exist, it's for a higher purpose that we're all working toward together. So those things drive me, even though they cause me pain as well.
definitely. That's very unfortunate here, but it is like the reality that not every conversation can be incredibly positive.
Mhm.
But that I love hearing that it's also a driver for you and everything that you do, which is really special. Unfortunately, it's kind of a wrap time for us. We have a lot to cover. This was so lovely to chat with you. Do you have any final notes or things to share with us?
I want to thank you for having me and for the work that you do, and for everyone who's interested today. Like, thank you for just being involved, because every bit makes a difference, and if we all just come together and create a stronger community, it's going to make ripples, and the ripples make waves, and that's what's really important.
Yes, amazing. Ripples make waves. I love that so much. I'm stealing that.
Oh yeah, do it. So
Well,
nice to
thank
meet
you.
you, Lauren.
So nice to meet you. Have a lovely rest of your evening, and we'll see you later. Bye. Thanks so much. Okay, amazing. Oh, wow. What a lovely conversation. And it's really great to hear from a candidate and a representative who is doing the work just like us, y'all. It's really fun. But it's time to keep moving. So we briefly covered canvassing. Let's get going on phone banking. We'll talk more about some more tips later, but let's move on. Phone banking, of course, is another highly effective method of direct voter contact, second only to canvassing that we just covered, because, of course, the more personal the outreach, the more effective it is. The sheer scale of the distributed power of phone banking is my favorite part of it and is why it has such a high impact in engaging voters. We love to emphasize that this distributed framework is what lends the effectiveness of phone banking to like why we actually do it, right? Because like if you're in Colorado, you can still phone bank in Michigan. If you're in Colorado, you can still phone bank in Arizona. We can help each other out, which is really special. So phone banking really does turn out the vote when done at scale. We love to talk about scale and organizing. And with almost 700 folks on this call, you know, with thousands of folks signed up to be on both Team East and Team West to organize, or else we've definitely got scale. So similar to how I mentioned in canvassing, your 50 calls on one day might feel like peanuts. You might have had only a few real conversations, but remember, you are just one drop in a big blue wave. Together we are mighty. People are calling alongside with you. It could be 10 other volunteers during your shift. It could be hundreds of other volunteers that day. It could be thousands of other volunteers that week. But we've got the numbers in our hands for sure. And not even the number scale, but also, again, the fact that if you get a wrong number, if people aren't home, that still contributes a great amount of data to the campaigns and organizations and cleaning up their data, cleaning up their lists, making sure we don't, you know, call folks at the wrong time again. Every ring, every call is valuable. Don't forget it. That's the thing that I hope that we all walk away with for sure. But a similar timeline when it comes to phone banking through VSA and with our Organizer Else program, pretty similar to canvassing, but let's just go through it one more time. You're going to sign up through the Partners Mobilize event page. You'll then receive details from that partner. These details are a little different. They'll probably include a Zoom link to join the training and the shift, possibly other campaign materials or the script, that sort of thing. You'll then attend the virtual shift, and you'll go through that partner's training, which will be at the top via Zoom most likely, and then you'll make calls together and have really great conversations. And again, you'll be able to either ask questions through the partner Zoom, but also VSA hosts our phone banks of the week through Slack, and we have our own kind of shift threads where we ask each other questions while we're phone banking, where we hype each other up, where we share stories. So don't miss out on that. And of course, we're going to continue to sign up again and again. So let's kind of break down the logistics and the who's and the what's for a phone bank event. Again, you're going to have the partner organizer leading the training. You're going to have fellow volunteers tuning in. You also may have some VSA call crew leaders joining. Those are going to be the amazing VSA volunteer moderators who are going to be hosting our threads in Slack. We also have some VSA Zoom backgrounds that we're going to be sharing in Slack that you might be able to use while you tune into these Zoom trainings. When it comes to how, you also have kind of like the two options depending on the campaign or the organization. You have either a VPB, which stands for virtual phone bank. That's more of a kind of like manual way of making calls, or you have an auto dialer, which is our definitely preferred way because again, it's quicker, it's more efficient. You don't have to hear any ringing. We love dialers, especially Scale to Win. But again, once you sign up for the shift, you'll get specific training on the specific dialer or the VPP that shift will be using. And when it comes to logistics, there tends to be a lot of, tech troubleshooting that you may have to go through, but you'll be able to do so at that virtual training, as well as through our VSA Slack and the phone bank threads that we're going to be hosting. And when it comes to the conversations you'll be having, we generally name the people that we're going to be calling as a target universe or a target list versus a turf or list of doors with canvassing. But again, a reminder, these are people just like yourself. They're just voters. They're just people. Don't forget it. And of course, when it comes to the script, you'll receive it beforehand and you want to make sure to make it your own and practice. Again, we're going to cover that in just a second. Now, that was a quick overview again, but we have another lovely guest to chat with today. Team West, we didn't forget about you, don't worry. But I'm happy to share that we have Representative Seth Blattman here with us tonight, representing Arizona's 9th Legislative District in the State House, covering Mesa, Arizona. We're so excited to have him on. Please welcome Representative Blattman. Hello.
Hi, great to see you. I'm so excited to be here. It was
great to see ya.
I'm a big fan of Pod Save America and Vote Save America. So you guys are doing amazing work. Thank you so much.
Yay, we're so happy to have you. But yeah, I mean, we love Arizona. I personally do. And VSA, of course, and PodSave folks, we are so excited to support you this cycle as well. So if for those of us tuning in who aren't familiar, can you just kind of give us a lowdown of your specific racing campaign and kind of set the scene for us and how Arizona is looking this year?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm a local business owner here in Mesa, and I grew up in Arizona. I've been here since I was 10 years old, and when I grew up here, it was a very red state. Like you could feel it. Like you knew your neighbors were all conservative Republicans, and that was sort of the way it is. But we are a very purple state right now. We are very competitive at all levels. I mean, a few thousand votes are going to decide who wins between Biden and I hate saying his name, Trump.
Yeah.
A few thousand votes are going to decide who wins Ruben Gallego or Kerry Lake, congressional races, county races. And the legislature is extremely, extremely competitive. It is 31 Republicans to 29 Democrats in the House. It's 16 to 14 in the Senate. So we're really just one seat away. We have a Democratic governor. We're ready to go. We just really need to pick up the majority. And the terrible thing right now, working down at the ledge, is the Republicans are in the majority, but they govern like they're in a supermajority. I mean, last month we repealed the 1864 abortion ban, and this was not easy to get done. We only got a few Republicans to cross party lines because the Republicans here are crazy. They are extremists, and that's how they govern. This week we're voting on a racist piece of legislation that wants to do racial profiling, which Arizona had a law like this 15 years ago. We know it doesn't work. We know it leads to horrible outcomes. But this is the way the Republican majority rules here in Arizona. So it's critical that we flip the legislature and take the majority. I'm in a super competitive district. It votes 50-50. There's 3,000 more Republicans than Democrats. I won my race by 760 votes. Took about 3 weeks of counting to make sure who had won, but in the end, we won. Mesa is known as a conservative place, but we were able to elect a Democrat. Yeah, that's my race, and working very hard to make sure that we win.
Working very hard, I'm sure. Yeah, because as you just mentioned, there's definitely a lot at stake, especially in your district and especially just like all across Arizona. Lots of ledge to fight for and fight against. But yeah, of course, there's a lot at stake. And of course, we're going to be on your side throughout the whole way as much as we can. And I think it's really cool how so many of us, with the folks who are introducing themselves at the beginning of the call, we're calling from quite literally all over the place, which is amazing. And so for those of us who are going to be volunteering for Arizona races and yours from all over, from different states, how do you view that impact, that distributed sort of impact of other volunteers connecting with folks who they may not know, obviously, but then also who they may not live next to?
Yeah, first go Team West. Let's go. We're gonna win this thing.
Yeah.
No, I mean, this is how we win elections, right? Like this is direct voter contact is how we win. I've always been skeptical how many votes a mailer or a street sign can actually persuade, but actually talking to voters is how we win. Whether it's going door to door or over the phone, you're able to talk to someone on the phone and make a personal connection, and they hear a human being explaining to them why they chose the candidate that they chose or why they should turn out and vote. And that's what truly moves people, persuades people. I've done it a million times at the door. I was doing phone banking earlier today, talking to voters. I was able to persuade some, and this is the most effective way to win elections. It's how we're going to win. And the Republicans don't do this. They don't care about talking to people. They care about scaring people. We care about contacting people and actually giving them a reason to vote.
Absolutely. Yeah, giving them a reason, making that connection. I definitely agree. And like you mentioned, we're all humans here. We're all just trying to talk to each other and hear each other out and make sure that we're sharing our values and fighting for them. So that makes sense to me. But yeah, the field margin is generally slim, not generally, but sometimes it can be. And we are going to be working as much as we can to, fill in whatever margin there is in as many races as we can. That means a lot of conversations. But can you share with us maybe like like one or two really cool connections that you have had, either at the doors or making phone calls with a voter in your district?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just because it happened like an hour ago, I'll remember. So I was talking to this woman. In Arizona, the independents are the largest vote share. That's just how Arizona does it here.
Right.
And she was a registered independent. She definitely was up in the air on who she's voting for. But after listening to her, she was a Democrat. Like she was absolutely a Democrat. She believed in democratic values.
Mm.
She agreed with our policies. So I think I'm going to get her to come to a Democratic event. I think we're going to get her to sign up as a Democrat. So that felt really good. If you could actually persuade someone to switch their political party, that felt like a great call. But other ones have been, you talk in someone's driveway. I remember this one guy at a door. He approached the conversation very arrogant, a little with some bravado. I didn't think it was going to go very well or last more than 30 seconds. But 10 minutes later, he was, literally crying, talking about his daughters and the future he wanted for them. So, you can really make connections with people when you talk to them one-on-one. And, that was sort of a great moment. And, and everyone here is going to have the same moments when they make their calls.
Yeah, that's really special to kind of start a conversation in one way and then it ending up in another. Again, it keeps us on our toes, right? That's why I love taking action, especially in person, because you get to like see that change in real time. But yeah, we're wrapping up our time together, unfortunately. But do you have any kind of final notes, final tips, or other things to share with us?
No, just thank you. A big thank you. I mean, like Arizona, like we are up against extremists. Like I work with the two senators who are fake electors, and one of them is at the January 6th insurrection. Like we are really fighting extremism. I'm a normal person. People of Arizona are normal. So we need a change. And thank you guys so much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for being a normal person. It's crazy that we're having to fight for just some normalcy here. But we appreciate you and appreciate for you running again, doing all the work that you're doing. But we'll stay in touch and we'll see you later.
Thank you.
Thank you. Amazing. Everyone give it up in the chat for Representative Blattman and for Arizona. We love AZ. We're going to be fighting hard for them, especially all of y'all on Team West. Okay, let's keep going, folks. We still have 30 minutes to go in our time together, so we have still a lot to cover. But yeah, when it comes to both canvassing and phone banking, which we did a little quick overview just now, you will receive a specific script that the organizer who you'll eventually talk to will say that you should stick to. I also agree. Don't worry, you don't want to go fully off the rails, but our biggest tip for all of y'all in practice is that you should feel free to make it your own and make the script yours. The more a conversation is personal, the more positive that connection will be. Again, we've talked about this a bunch tonight already, but we're just people talking to people in the end, right? So really practicing this skill, the skill of making a script yours, making it your own, is also really effective in shaking any nerves you might have when it comes to taking action. I know that's why a lot of us are here, to kind of hear some tips or figure out how to shake those nerves, because talking with strangers, talking with voters can feel really intimidating at first. But again, this top tip we have, making the script yours, practicing this skill is really gonna make a difference. And looking through the script and adjusting it to fit your voice is how you're going to really shake those nerves and make it through and have really high impact conversations. But you'll see below me, we have another resource and worksheet for y'all at votesaveamerica.com/action. Like we had in the first two trainings, we have an evergreen resource that y'all can check out and get to know what's going on. But the worksheet is my favorite bit of it for those of us who joined the Pi Day phone bank training back in March. It's going to look a little familiar, but for right now, let me actually share my screen and just show y'all how this resource and worksheet looks. The worksheet or the resource covers a lot of what we've talked about already, just FYI, in regards to being prepared to both canvas and phone bank. Again, the top tip is making the script your own. Again, you want to work on your conversation muscles, because yes, we all talk to people, we all have conversations all the time, all day, every day for some of us, but having strategic, power building, political conversations is definitely a different muscle that you want to exercise and really practice. So definitely check this worksheet out. We'll share it in Slack again. We're going to share it in the chat some more. But yeah, let me just share my screen a little bit on how you'll access. So when you go to that link, votesaveamerica.com/action, this is what you'll see. Getting ready to take action resource, a really good kind of breakdown of kind of everything I just mentioned, but especially some really good points on how to make the script your own. Get to the point, determine the talking point and issue in the script that you connect with the most. A lot of this is really just really figuring out how to make that connection, which is, again, kind of the biggest through line that we're going to be having in all the action that we have. But when you click to access the script worksheet, you'll see this screen here. It's going to make a copy of the worksheet so that you can, edit everything that you would like to edit. So this is the worksheet. Again, access this and you'll see all the directions, but essentially it's providing a sample script for you that you might get when phone banking or canvassing. And it offers a way to kind of edit, cut, add, to kind of really get it in your voice. And yeah, there's some good stuff in there. So definitely head there. Again, we will have that resource for you in the chat and also in our VSA Slack, which if you're not there already, you're missing out. That's for sure. But yeah, so we've made it to our other expert panel, actually our final expert panel of this training series, which is a bummer, but it's no better way to finish it off than with these two ladies, two of VSA's and Crooked's favorite people. So we're going to be chatting with Simone Rossi. You might know her as, if you're a friend of the pod, as the Crooked community manager. Also a Team West captain. There's lots of Team West love tonight. I know we were a little biased in the first two. Sorry, guys. But she's an organizer through and through, expert and experienced in all direct voter contact. We also have Miss Nancy Latham, a star VSA volunteer. If you're in Slack, you've probably seen her around. She's one of our amazing VSA mods. Could not be more helpful. Also on Team West. See, guys? Come on. But yeah, please welcome to the stage Nancy and Simone. How y'all doing? Let me get rid of this slide so we can chat. How's it going?
Oh.
Go Team West.
Yeah, go Team West. I'm so excited to be here tonight.
Yay, we're so excited to have y'all. Yeah, I am on Team East, but we won't fight. Don't worry about it. Okay.
We'll forgive you.
Thanks, y'all. Okay, well, I'm so excited to have both of your expert forces here for this finale, but let's get started because, again, we could chat all day long, honestly, but my first question is for you, Nancy, actually. So when we normally get scripts, whether it be phone banking or canvassing, it can often have a lot of words, not normally how we would talk, really lengthy introductions or monologues or whatever else. So it can make it hard to really make that immediate connection that we've been talking about this whole time, essentially. So do you have any tips on how to really hook a voter, how to really get that conversation going and build the trust with that voter pretty quickly?
For sure. And just like you said, you get the script, there might be a lot in it. And then sometimes people want to get off the phone, or you get the idea they might want to shut the door. And so your natural impulse at this point is going to say all of the talking points as fast as you possibly can before the voter hangs up. But try to resist this impulse because the voter is likely to feel really talked at and tune you out. So instead, like you said, you can hook the voter by asking questions and making it into a real conversation. And there's one question I actually got from a different training that I really like. So you can say something like, this will take only a moment. The candidate has asked us to call voters and find out what's most important to them. So if you were in an elevator with candidate X and you try to say their name, what would you ask them to put at the top of their to-do list? Or what are one or two things you'd want them to know? And humans have a tendency just to answer direct questions without thinking about it. So if you've kept them on the phone or at the door long enough to hear that, they're likely to just share their opinion. And before you know it, you're in a real conversation.
That's a great way to do it. Yeah, like if you're in an elevator, you know, you have to have that conversation, right? Yeah, the hook is, I think, the most fun, kind of thrilling part of any sort of conversation that you'll have with the voter. And because that's when the click happens, when the connection really happens, which is amazing. Okay, well, moving on, Miss Simone. Obviously, when we're having conversations, yes, we have that hook, but the conversation will continue. So we're going to want to listen. We love the magic listening phrase, tell me more. You know, after asking that, though, we can often end up facing a person who's still unsure and does want to know more. So how would you say is the best way to kind of pivot back to that ask at hand, back to, you know, why you're actually calling them or why you're actually knocking on their door?
Yeah, that's a great question. I did notice too in the chat while we were going over the earlier training portions that a lot of folks were saying familiarize yourself with the script. I also want to say familiarize yourself with the candidate or the social issue that you're talking about so that when you come to this point where you're asking this voter to tell you more, you're prepared with a couple of key facts. So let's say they have a specific stance on immigration or abortion or economics. You want just a one-liner about that, whether it's they voted on this bill or whatever. And that way, if you have that situation where they've gone on and told you more about what they're passionate about, what issues are important to them, then you're able to go ahead and connect it back to who you're calling for. So the candidate at that point, from then you can kind of make it personal and say, hey, well, I'm so glad that you care about abortion. Did you know that this candidate actually is really pro-choice and is endorsed by Planned Parenthood, etc.? And then bring it back around and say, with that new information, would you like to, or will you be voting? Or essentially what the main ask is. Are you voting for this candidate? Will you be voting at all? Are you making a vote plan? So just making sure that you have kind of key points ahead of time and then taking the main issue that they care about, connecting it to not only themselves, but also the candidate you're calling for, and then asking them once more what their support's going to be.
Amazing. Yes, it's that kind of like threading through, like, you, me, the candidate, we're all connected.
Exactly.
Kind of, yeah, webbing through whatever like issue point, talking point, or, you know, general shared value, because that's we're in the business of making that connection and kind of rounding it all the way back, which is very helpful in getting, yeah, that either could be the vote plan, it could be the, you know, you're gonna vote for this person, please and thank you, which is amazing. Okay, cool. So next question for both of y'all. A lot of us, we've mentioned this a bunch tonight, but, you know, we're volunteering from across the whole country, and we're going to be calling in and knocking for a bunch of different campaigns, candidates, issues. So you just kind of mentioned this, Simone, but when it comes to using talking points and like issues, of course, we want to familiarize ourselves with that candidate and with that campaign, but how do we really kind of flex that in the script and in our own conversation? Obviously in like kind of that like pivot structure that you just mentioned, but how else would it make sense for us to really, you know, talk about these things when it comes to just wanting to have a connection and a conversation with a voter? Whoever wants to go first, let me know.
I can go.
Sure.
So no matter what issue that you're talking about, pretty much everything can fit into this very powerful storyline that I encourage everybody to use. And this is one where we reframe everything for the voter in terms of being at a fork in the road, facing two possible futures. And there's a good future in which we're expanding our freedoms. And that's the future that the Democrats are fighting for. They're fighting for you for that future. And then on the other hand, there's a bad future in which freedoms are being stripped away. Politicians want to control us. And that's the future that MAGA Republicans are pushing for. So if you can put your talking points in this frame, it does several useful things. So one is it's clarified the stakes, because we know that most voters don't want the MAGA future. They don't want a nationwide abortion ban. They don't want to lose the Affordable Care Act. They don't want cuts to Social Security and Medicare. And we also know that in every election, 2018 on, when voters know the stakes, the anti-MAGA coalition shows up to the polls and we win. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you've set up a stark contrast. It's not just scaring the pants off the voters about the MAGA future. It gives them something positive to vote for. It's not a lesser of two evils situation. It's a beautiful tomorrow with more freedom. And the third thing, you're not going to be surprised, you've evoked a value that Americans hold dear, which is freedom. And so you're helping them to identify Democrats with having more freedoms and MAGA Republicans with having less freedoms and more control over them, which they do not want. And the last thing is something that's particularly important if the candidate you happen to be calling about is Joe Biden. So as we know, some people aren't super excited to vote for Biden, the person. So in this new frame, you're shifting for the voter's mindset, right? They're going from thinking about voting for Biden, the individual, versus Trump, the individual. It's not two individual candidates. The choice is about two futures. So again, like putting your talking points into this framework at a crossroads of choosing between two futures, just incredibly powerful. And it will help unify all of the different talking points that you have.
I love that. Truly. Yeah.
So wonderful. I don't have too much to add. I just want to highlight, as Nancy said, so many of voters, so many of us as volunteers and as folks who are politically engaged, we are kind of pummeled with a lot of negative news, a lot of negative things going on in the world. There's a lot of, sad things going on. So to really highlight the positive, the possibility and hope of a positive future, that's like number one. Nancy hit the nail on the head with that one.
Absolutely. I agree. Positive. There's actually a really great comment that I'll just show on the screen right here. It might hide your faces, sorry. But Jennifer says, I love the idea of focusing on the future and then the way our future is now. Absolutely correct. We're fighting for now, for our future, and for our future's future. Amazing. But when it comes to, we'll go to the next question. When it comes to, really having a ton of these conversations at scale, I'll ask you, Simone, this, but can you share a time with us? You've had plenty of conversations with voters, but if you can kind of whittle it down to maybe one or two, when you could really feel the results of the power that, we've been talking about this whole time of, actually building power and making connections through organizing. It can also be a time when maybe you didn't actively feel it. Maybe you felt a little less positive about it and you just kind of had to trust that drop in the bucket process.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'll start with one where it didn't necessarily feel so great, didn't feel like I was making that big of an impact. I'll flash back to 2021. So it's an off year. It's not necessarily an election nationwide. And then I was working on campuses actually in Arizona, registering voters, doing all that fun stuff. And you can quickly tell that in an off year, especially with younger voters, they're less inclined to be engaged. They're less inclined to know what's going on or even want to think about 2022, like a next midterm election the year before, especially because, people are busy, they've got full-time school or work, etc. So really trying to engage voters was difficult, but every new voter that I was able to register or talk to me, I felt fulfilled. And then a year later, I had people and volunteers from that following fall reach out and be like, okay, I want to start now. I have more space. I have more time. So you start to see the impact when you start to build those connections. And then some time where I felt like I was getting an immediate kind of fulfillment was especially during the 2020 election. I actually worked on an Arizona legislative race. So I wasn't on the presidential campaign, but I was on a local one in Arizona, very similar to the race that Representative Blattman is running right now. And it was the pandemic, and it was the first time that we were focusing heavily and completely on phone banking and text banking. So being able to talk to especially older voters who were very scared and very concerned about what was going on in our country, it was really interesting getting to hear those different perspectives. I had just graduated college at that time, so getting to hear from voters who have lived a different life than me and had different perspectives, but we grew up in the same, state, in the same community. it was really fantastic for me to be able to talk to them about a specific impact that has to do with the state legislature, in addition to electing Democrats up and down the ballot. So that was just a wonderful experience.
That's really awesome. And kind of like the contrast of the two kind of stories that you just mentioned, especially the, wait a little for the fulfillment, because you will feel it eventually, and maybe not directly, but at some point in the future, you'll feel good about the conversations that you've been having, which is amazing.
Yeah. And even if they turn you down and they turn away, at least you told them one thing that they may remember. And the same thing if you're texting and they don't reply, they're still seeing that message, they're still going to read it, and they may remember that on election day.
Exactly. Yes. You still have planted, I think someone mentioned this in the chat, but you've planted some sort of seed. No matter what amount you were able to share with them, you shared with them something that will hopefully impact them down the road. Yes, Simone, plant the seed. Amy Jo Green says here, love, obsessed. Okay, so we're rounding out our time together, unfortunately, but y'all have plenty of tips, I'm sure. Nancy, do you have any final tips that you want to share for folks that are joining us today?
I have way more than I have time for, but I am going to share this one tip. And I want everybody to hear to think of their goal when they're phone banking or canvassing, not to get votes, which obviously we want, but just like Lauren said, to make a connection. I want you to think of your goal as making the voter feel good. And there are 3 pretty reliable ways to do this. We already talked about one with hooking the voter. There's asking questions, getting curious. A second one is empathy. And you'll find your natural way of doing this, like saying like, oh, that must be hard, or I get that. A line that I tend to say a lot is, oh, I totally know what you mean. That rolls off the tongue for me. A third one is actually compliments. When you compliment people, they feel really warm and fuzzy. They feel appreciated. And you'll be surprised. Like when people tell you a bit about themselves, you'll find something to compliment. Like I was talking with this voter who was really stressed out. Her husband was away a lot. She worked more than 40 hours. She had to get her 2 kids to and from school and daycare. And so I just told her, like, I'm really impressed with everything you have on your plate, everything you're juggling, how you're doing it so well, and you're showing up for your kids. And so with these 3 things, the questions, the empathy, the compliments, the key is they have to be real. You need to actually feel curious and actually feel kind and warm-hearted toward the voter. So before you hop on the dialer, just take a few minutes and get into the voter conversation zone. And you think about the people you're going to meet, set your intention that they're going to feel better after they talk to you than they felt before. And so this takes the pressure off you. You don't have to worry about getting their votes. You feel good, that flows to the voter. And P.S., if they have a delightful conversation with somebody who is asking them to vote for Democrats, they are more likely to show up to the polls and vote for Democrats.
Exactly. They're more likely to do so. Yes, I love that. The 3, what did you say? Curiosity, empathy, compliments, and voter conversation zone. Voter conversation zone. Yes, I love that. Yeah, get in the zone is a big one. Simone, did you have any final little tidbits to share?
I would just want to say that, especially with phone banking and canvassing, when you are kind of talking face-to-face or like verbally, a voter's favorite word is going to be their name. So make sure that when you see it pop up on that dialer, you memorize it so that you can bring it up throughout the conversation. It makes them feel like you're paying more attention to them. It makes them feel like it's more personal, just like Nancy said. So making sure that you're bringing it up as much as possible is going to make a huge difference. You'd be surprised.
That's actually a really great quick tip of like, yeah, you want to actually address them as the person that they are, and that's their name. That's really great. I actually forgot about that one. So thank you for the reminder on behalf of myself. Okay, well, I'm sad to say this is our time with each other. We still have more for everyone tuning in, but I'll say goodbye to both you, Simone and Nancy. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us. Honestly,
thank you for having us.
Yes, all of those tips were amazing. Yay. Okay, well, we'll see y'all later. We'll see you in Slack or on Discord. We'll see you around. But thank you so much again. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, great. I'm going to be rewatching that tidbit so I can really get all of the tips that they shared in my brain. But a few final tips from us just to kind of round out the evening. So a few things, we kind of just discussed a lot of these, but when it comes to canvassing, besides practicing the script and making it your own, please do remember that practice doesn't mean perfect. Again, we are having, personal conversations with folks. So don't feel like you need to know every single talking point, every single everything. You're a person, you're a human being, right? You're not a robot. A really important thing when it comes to canvassing, you'll see these tips also, by the way, at the votesaveamerica.com/action resource. So if you need to reference these again, head to the resource, you'll find them there. But you want to make sure to know your rights and the rights of others, because when you're out knocking doors out on the streets, you're not soliciting, you're just trying to talk to your neighbors. So make sure to remember that. And of course, the organizer will remind you that as well. Be as friendly as can be. I don't think it'll be a problem for all of us VSAers because we're lovely people. And a lot of the key phrases that I would say are really helpful to have in your back pocket, Simone and Nancy kind of just covered. So, the three-part structure that Nancy talked about: curiosity, empathy, compliments, of course, getting in the zone. But, key phrases like, thank you for being a voter. Thank you for having the time to talk to me. This conversation was really helpful. You were awesome. Just making sure that you're still having that conversation and still kind of talking to these people like real people. And then when it comes to details and data, these will be tips that your organizer with our partner will really emphasize for sure. Because when it comes to how you're going to be talking through and like finalizing your conversations, whether it be on your app or on the paper walk list, will be really important because, again, we're here for the data, not just the conversations. We love to keep it in check. Okay, final tips for phone banks. Some are very similar, but again, besides practicing that script and besides making it your own, you're going to get into that voter zen zone. I almost said den zone. Voter zen zone. Take a breath, get in the zone, do what you need to do, and get ready to dial in. And of course, we have to say it, smile while you dial. And of course, the same sort of few key phrases to have in your back pocket, the hook phrases, and of course, details and data. Don't forget them. All right, so we made it to the final training, guys. This is it. Some of us have added to the team stats by calling or by knocking doors. I have on the screen right now the Team West actions that I need y'all to sign up for. So shout out in the chat if you're in Team West. You'll also see in the chat and be able to click on or copy and paste some of the links in the chat here. The links below. We need you to pull out your calendar right now. I'm going to hold for like a minute until Team West signs up for some shifts. So we need y'all to sign up for 2 shifts. The first link is going to be our big phone bank of the week happening on June 6th. The second link is going to be the second big phone bank of the week happening on June 15th. And then the third is going to be other phone banks that, in case those 2 don't work for your schedule, you will find another one there. Of course, these links do live and will be accessed through Slack, but let's do it now. Go to those links, votesave.us/West-June 6th, and then the same votesave.us/West-June 15th, and then West-calls. I want to see y'all sign up. Come on, Team West, let's go. Darcy says, let's do it. Team East, I'm about to show them on the screen, don't you worry. But Team West, I want to make sure you see these. Okay, Team West, I hope you're doing it. All right, Team East, similar things. We need you to pull out your calendar, sign up for these 2 shifts. The dates are a little different. So for Team East, we have a phone bank on June 8th and a phone bank on June 13th. And of course, you can head to the /East-calls for other options when it comes to phone banking. But we need you to sign up for these next 2 shifts now while we're here. Because again, these links are going to be for our upcoming phone banks that we need everyone on each team to take action with. That's why y'all are here, right? To take action. So it's time. Let's get you on the dialer. Some of you may be asking though, what if I want to canvas? Don't you fret, because we do have, of course, tons of canvassing options, but most of those options are going to be living through, you guessed it, VSA Slack. And that is where we're going to head to in a second. But I just want to make sure We have nice hard ask. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, everyone get to these links. We need you to sign up. I better be seeing those sign up increase. And I'm going to see y'all at those phone banks. Team East, I'm counting on you. Come on. All right. But like I said, we are going to be organizing in Slack. Join us there, votesaveamerica.com/team. Not only will you find canvassing opportunities there, you'll also find updates on our team stats. We are going to be actually hosting on June 27th a presidential debate watch along. We also often will be hosting podcast listen-alongs. There's a lot to do, including, I'm really excited for this one, but the Democracy or Else book club. The guys at Pod Save America, in case you missed it, they wrote a book, guys. So we're going to be having a book club to read along with each other. We also are going to be having a postcard party with Progressive Turnout Project and a supporter fundraising events. Actually, we're hosting 2 with Act Blue. So join us on Slack, head to votesaveamerica.com/team. We're going to have a really good time. That's why we're here. But just as these are the final steps that we need you to do. So of course, practice, make the script yours, sign up to take action. We need y'all to commit to consistently taking action. And obviously we're going to have y'all join the Slack so that you can stay in touch while you take action and ask questions and really rally with your organizer else team, because I feel the Team East, what am I saying? Pride, Team East pride. I feel it in my blood. I don't know about y'all. And just a little quick recap on what we've covered this training series, because again, sadly, it's 9 p.m. Eastern time, which means it's the end. It's the final of training number 3. But just to recap, taking direct voter contact is really fun, okay? We talked a lot in training 1 about the framing of accomplishments and contrasts. We kind of talked about that tonight as well, but we want to really base our conversations in our real lives and in how these issues and these campaigns and candidates will affect them. We are going to be threading relational organizing in everything that we do, and we're going to get voters hooked through that hard ask and through a couple of the tips that Nancy just mentioned in our conversation. And then, of course, we're going to stay connecting through our shared values and through some specific talking points that will be provided. And you'll actually be able to rewatch all of these good tips and tricks through the Pod Save America's YouTube channel. Go ahead and send it to your friends too. Get them on board. Why not? But that's it, guys. This has been such a lovely experience for myself to be able to talk with all of y'all in the past few, 3, 4, all of the events that we've been hosting. But I hope y'all feel the same. And of course, shout out to the rest of Team VSA at work behind the scenes. Eric, the iconic VSA community manager, all of our VSA moderators who have been typing furiously to answer your questions in the chat. And another big thanks to all of our awesome speaking guests who offer their time and expertise. Of course, for tonight, Representative Churches, Representative Blattman, Simone and Nancy. And the biggest final thank you of all to everyone here, all of the volunteers. VSA volunteers are where the winning, capacity building, empathetic political nerd energy really is at. That's what we're all about. And, you know, I'm going to do it one final time. This will be my final verbal ask during this training series to join us in Slack, votesaveamerica.com/team. I'll see y'all there. Let's grow together, ask more questions, talk pods, and have fun. Again, thanks, y'all. I'll see you later. But I hope you have a lovely evening, and I'll see you on Slack, and I'll see you at a phone bank soon. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.